Hi everyone, I want to talk about the query letter today because it's so important when you are selling a memoir manuscript, if you're selling any manuscript, to a potential literary agent or publisher. So if you've never seen any of my videos or blog posts before, my name is Louisa and I'm a twice published memoir author, and I've worked in writing, media, publishing for over 20 years. And I teach writing and also the publishing process to first-time memoir authors and non-fiction authors. So the query letter. The reason that I want to talk about the query letter is because there is so much misinformation about the query letter, and I had this mixed up myself. I went to all sorts of book proposal workshops and had edits and revisions on my synopses when I was pitching one of my first books, and I actually thought the synopsis was the query letter, and I've since found out that I'm not alone in this. But the query letter is very different to the synopsis. Okay, so the query letter is the first email that you will send a potential agent or publisher or editor introducing yourself and your book. The query letter has one goal, and that is to get your potential agent, publisher, or whoever you are sending it to request to see more of your work. It doesn't need to explain your life story or your life history or even your publishing history. It just needs to pitch this book, this story, in as short and sharp a way as possible. And this is why I have a lot of resources about writing a good pitch, because I really found that the skills that I developed as a freelance journalist pitching stories in a few paragraphs to potential newspapers and digital outlets and magazine editors were the same skills that I needed to sell my first and my second memoir. And it did. I sold my first book. I sent a query on the Friday, had a request for full manuscript straight away, and then had an offer of publication on Tuesday. So I know how to write a query letter. So you can trust what I'm saying here. So this is an email. It's a very short email, the query letter. The subject line needs to make it clear what you are pitching. So make sure you put the category of literature that you are pitching in your subject line to the person that you are pitching it to, the agent or the editor or the publisher. The first paragraph really needs to connect you to that agent or that publisher, so some kind of connection or engagement sentence. And then you need to really put that hook, those 5 principles that I talk about with compelling memoir, all need to go in the query letter, but in much shorter, sharper frames. So I teach this stuff in my best-selling pitch guide and sequence if you want to take a look further. But it's stuff like making the hook and the themes right up the front, the premise of the story and where it's going to sit with this potential agent or publisher's categories that they publish. And then, just a few lines on how the story develops. This is not your synopsis, so you do not need to give them a blow-by-blow inclusion of every single thing that happens in the story. You want them to be asking questions. You don't want to explain it all. You really want to lead with a question here. And then you finish with some punchy, sort of salesy sentences about your best bylines and you're pitching yourself as well as the story in this query letter, and your author bio, your writer bio down the bottom of the query letter needs to be super short and super relevant to the publisher and the book that you are pitching, and only include stuff that speaks to your experience and your expertise in that area. You could put comparative titles. It's definitely, I would recommend that, but I really want you to focus on keeping your query letter down to 150 to 200 words maximum. Biggest mistake I see writers making with their query letters, that when I've been editing and revising query letters, is that they are way too long. And, you know, with digital reading, so everything that you submit now is going to be read digitally, and the query letter is an email now, no longer faxing or even snail mailing. The query letter is going to be read. You can imagine 90% or 80% of potential agents and publishers are going to be reading this on their phone now. So I think I read somewhere that we give things less than 3 seconds to capture our attention. So you really need it to be as short, sharp and punchy as possible, your query letter. Now, I know that this is hard, particularly when you have worked on the book and you've written the manuscript already, and so you know, that's where that whole phrase "kill your darlings" comes from. It feels like you are leaving people out. You are you know, leaving really important stuff out when you don't include everything, but it's so important to leave them wanting more, because that is the overall goal of your query letter, is to spark interest and get them to go, oh my God, what is this story? That is wild. Yes, tell me more. That is all you want. You want them to say, tell me more. And then you send them the synopsis or the chapter outlines or the first 10 or 20 or 50 pages. And, you know, and this is why I recommend writing the full draft before you even start the submission process for a memoir particularly, because then you will have that stuff as good as you can get it. And it'll be ready to go when they say, when someone responds to your query letter with a request to see more. And they may not request to see the full manuscript, they may just request to see the first 10 pages. So, you know, you want to make sure that 10 pages really follows through on the promise of the query letter. So I hope this has helped you, just a few query letter tips. But yeah, aside from being too long, that is probably the number one problem I've seen in the query letters that I've edited and revised for authors, potential authors. The other issue that I see is when they are writing their query letter without actually having written any of the draft or even the outline of the draft. And it's a bit impossible to do that, because your query letter, even though you're not telling them the whole story, you need to know it, because you need to know what you are holding back. And also, in that call to action part of your query letter, you need to say what's available. So, you know, you can't be saying, this is just my idea and I haven't actually written any of it, but if you like it, I'll write it for you. That's not going to work. So you do actually need to have material ready to send them, either the proposal or the draft, preferably both, when ready to go when they respond to you with a request. So I hope this has helped you. I can give you more help if you want to book a one-on-one session with me. I can take a look at your query letter, and I also teach all of this process inside my Book Deal Accelerator program, which is all about the publishing sales process for first-time memoir authors. But if you haven't written the manuscript yet, don't worry about the query letter. Just go and get as good a grip as you can on those 5 principles of compelling memoir, and start with some writing, and that's going to help you a lot more. I hope this has helped.